the Gaza Peace Summit, and the Russia-Ukraine dynamics, as of October 12, 2025, and the tensions/risks to watch going forward. Key facts and status. A peace summit is scheduled for October 13, 2025 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, co-chaired by Donald Trump and Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, bringing together more than 20 world leaders to map out next steps in Gaza. The summit is occurring in the context of a fragile ceasefire and hostage prisoner exchange deal already in motion. About 20 living Israeli hostages are to be released in exchange for nearly 2,000 Palestinian detainees. The International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, is facilitating the handover of hostages. Trump is projecting that the Gaza war is over and uses that framing as a sell for the summit's legitimacy. Israel has already begun receiving released hostages. Meanwhile, rubble removal, aid flows, and preliminary plans for reconstruction in Gaza are underway. However, the core issues remain unresolved. Who governs Gaza after hostilities? What becomes of Hamas? Disarmament, political role. How to ensure security, prevent future conflict, and deliver reconstruction aid. Accountability for wartime conduct, and the status of those still missing or unreturned. Some invited parties are not participating. Israel and Hamas themselves are reportedly not formally invited as summit participants. Iran was invited but declined to attend. The European Council's president, Antonio Costa, will represent the EU. Egypt is rising in diplomatic prominence, positioning itself as a key broker and host. Risks, challenges, and what to watch. Durability of the ceasefire implementation gap. Ceasefires in this conflict have been fragile and prone to breakdown. Once summit rhetoric gives way to realities on the ground, security, disarmament, border control, and de facto authority, there is a risk of renewed hostilities. Governing Gaza. Who runs Gaza post-conflict is contentious. The Palestinian Authority, a new international force, Hamas under certain constraints, or some hybrid model, are all possibilities, but each has strong objections from different stakeholders. Hamas' role in disarmament. Hamas' future, whether totally disarmed, integrated, or reduced to a political actor, is a central unresolved question. Ensuring any disarmament takes hold is a complicated task, especially given the group's embedded status. Reconstruction and aid and control. Massive reconstruction will be required. Ensuring aid access, monitoring use of funds, avoiding corruption, and balancing Israeli security concerns versus Gaza's sovereignty will all be pressure points. Regional and external actors. Nations with influence, Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, Iran, US, Arab states, will seek to shape outcomes. Iran's non-participation may limit one pathway. External pressure and leverage will be critical in enforcing agreements. Missing hostages remains. A number of Israeli hostages remain unaccounted for, and returning remains for identification is an emotionally charged issue. Delays or disputes here could reignite tensions. Political legitimacy and popular backlash. In Israel and among Palestinian constituencies, there will be scrutiny and backlash. Some Israelis may view concessions as too much, while some Palestinians underscore Gazans may reject deals that leave Hamas constrained or marginalized. Russia, Ukraine dynamics and escalation risk. Current flashpoints and tensions. Tomahawk missiles debate. A central flashpoint is the possibility of the U.S. supplying Tomahawk cruise missiles, range 500 km, to Ukraine. These have the capacity to strike deep into Russia, which has triggered strong warnings from Moscow. Trump has framed this as conditional. He wants assurances on how Ukraine would use them to avoid escalation. Zelensky has pledged that Ukraine would only use them against Russian military targets, not civilian ones. Russian warning and red lines. The Kremlin has warned that supplying Tomahawks would constitute a dramatic escalation and could be viewed as U.S. direct involvement. Some Russian voices have even implied they might interpret missile launches as nuclear in nature. Russian attacks on power infrastructure. Russia has intensified attacks targeting Ukraine's energy grid and infrastructure, with reports of workers injured and crucial facilities damaged across multiple regions: Kyiv, Donetsk, Odessa, Chernihiv. The strategy appears oriented toward degrading Ukraine's resilience ahead of winter and increasing civilian hardship. Diplomatic signaling and bluffs. The rhetoric from both sides is escalating. Trump's threats, combined with Moscow's warnings, make any miscalculation or misinterpretation liable to spiral. Ukraine's position and international support. Zelensky has lobbied intensively for long-range weaponry to regain leverage and pressure Russia. Other Western nations and defense analysts are watching closely. Some see the Tomahawk question as a pivotal test of U.S. commitment and a potential turning point in the conflict. Risks, challenges, and what to watch. Escalation into direct U.S. Russia confrontation. If the U.S. starts supplying Tomahawks or similar long-range systems, Russia may respond with reciprocal escalation, striking U.S. assets, targeting NATO interest, or opening new fronts. Misuse _ miscalculation. Even limited use of high-range weapons carries the risk of mistakes, civilian harm, or cross-border strays, which could trigger broad reprisals. Winter strategy and civilian pressure. Russia's energy infrastructure strikes aim to magnify civilian suffering in Ukraine during winter. Ukraine's ability to sustain resilience under these conditions is a test of will and capacity. International coalition and backing. The U.S. and its allies' willingness to follow through with aid, weapons, and economic support is critical. If commitments falter, Ukraine could be vulnerable. Nuclear messaging and deterrence risks. Moscow's hints about treating missile launches as nuclear events raise the specter of strategic misinterpretation. The margin for error is very slim. Internal limits and domestic constraints. Political constraints in the U.S., Congress, public opinion, Ukraine's military capacity, and Russia's internal politics all will influence how far escalation may go. Conflict spillover and regional risks. Any escalation could draw in neighboring states, Belarus, or provoke sabotage or asymmetric warfare in places beyond the primary front.